Our relationship, I think at that point, things were coming down on us pretty hard, and we started to take care of each other a lot more.
Yeah. We did 72 of those shows.
CBS had strict rules about editing the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. Every second was reviewed. Every word was checked. But on September 17, 1967, something slipped through. The censors missed it. The director didn't catch it. Even the brothers didn't know until later. During The Who's performance, the camera accidentally captured something in the background. Something that proved what everyone suspected, but couldn't prove. The Smothers Brothers' story began with tragedy. Their father, Major Thomas B. Smothers Jr., was an Army officer. In 1941, during World War II, he was serving in the Philippines. When Japan invaded, his wife Ruth and their sons were sent away. Major Smothers was captured. He survived the terrible Bataan Death March. Later, he was sent to Fukuoka No. 22, a harsh prison camp in Japan. In April 1945, when the war was almost over, he was too sick to work. On April 25th, he was moved from Fukuoka to Korea. He never made it. Some reports say he was buried at sea. Others say he was cremated in Korea. Of the 110 men who were transferred with him, only 36 survived. Major Smothers was the last to die. Ruth was left alone to raise Tom, who was born in 1937, and Dick, born in 1938. They grew up in California, while their mother worked long hours. Life was hard, and that pain shaped their comedy for years to come. That comedy phase took off in 1959 at the Purple Onion, a small club in San Francisco. The brothers were booked for just 2 weeks, but they were such a hit that they stayed for 36 weeks. Audiences loved their odd mix of folk music and funny stories. One night, a flamenco dancer was injured. Tom and Dick had to take her place. That surprise appearance showed everyone how special they were. By the end of their run, they were earning $2,000 a week. Only a few months before, they had been making $2 a night. Their first record, The Smothers Brothers at the Purple Onion, was released in 1961. It launched their career. Long before the Purple Onion, they played in a group Tom started at college. It was called the Casual Quintet. Tom played guitar. Dick learned the bass just to join him. The other members left one by one, but Tom and Dick kept going. They started telling jokes between songs to kill time. That was the real beginning of their style. They discovered that audiences laughed at their brotherly teasing as much as they liked the music. That sibling teasing became their trademark. On stage, Tom acted like the innocent one. Dick played the serious brother. They fought and argued in front of the crowd. Tom would say, "Mom always liked you best." And the audience would roar. It wasn't fake. It was just who they were. That real-life feeling gave their comedy an honesty that people could feel. By the mid-1960s, they had a chance to go even bigger. CBS was losing badly to NBC's Bonanza on Sunday nights. Bonanza was drawing a quarter of America's TV viewers. It had already crushed 2 other CBS hits, Harry Mason and The Gary Moore Show. CBS decided they had to try something bold. They wanted to draw in a younger crowd. They hoped the Smothers Brothers could do it. Tom and Dick were funny, smart, and different. CBS hoped they could help the network look cool again. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour premiered on February 5, 1967. On the surface, it looked like a normal variety show. Ed Sullivan introduced them as typical American kids, but within a few episodes, everyone could see they weren't typical at all. They joked about the Vietnam War. They mocked politicians. They talked about real issues. Their comedy was sharp and brave. Every week they pushed boundaries and people loved it. Within 2 weeks, they beat Bonanza in the ratings. Younger viewers tuned in. Advertisers were thrilled. Tom had asked for total creative control before they started. CBS agreed because they were desperate for a hit. That deal gave the brothers the freedom to say what they wanted. They invited folk singers like Pete Seeger, who sang anti-war songs. They made fun of President Johnson on national TV. Every show felt like a surprise. Every show felt like a risk. CBS censors fought them at every turn. The brothers fought back, often making the censorship part of the show. The writing team was as daring as the hosts. Young comedy writers like Steve Martin, Rob Reiner, Laura Michaels, and David Steinberg all got their start there. They wrote jokes that mattered. They broke the usual TV rules. Many went on to change American comedy forever. Their woke-shaped shows like Saturday Night Live, All in the Family, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. In 1968, something happened on American television that nobody expected. On October 6th, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour showed the Beatles' promotional film for Hey Jude. Just a few weeks before that, on September 8th, people in the UK had already seen it. But this was the first time Americans could watch this kind of film. Back then, they weren't called music videos. They were called promotional films. The Beatles had shot Hey Jude at Twickenham Studios on September 4th. Paul McCartney even designed the set himself. A big orchestra dressed in white tuxedos played along. There were also 300 extras who sang the ending together. Ringo Starr had just come back to the band after quitting for a short time. So, this was more than just a song. It was a big moment for them. That wasn't all. The next week, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour showed Revolution. Two Beatles videos back-to-back gave American audiences a new way to experience the band. Other shows, even The Ed Sullivan Show, couldn't do this. The Smothers Brothers had access nobody else had. It felt like a big shift. Music was changing. Television was changing, too. In 1967, another big moment happened on the same show. Pete Seeger was invited to sing. For years, Seeger had been banned from TV. The blacklist had kept him off the air for nearly 17 years. When he finally sang Waist Deep in the Big Muddy, it was a direct jab at President Johnson's Vietnam policy. CBS cut the song before it aired in September 1967. Tom Smothers wasn't going to stay quiet. He made sure the story reached the press. Public anger forced CBS to let Seeger come back. On February 25, 1968, millions of people finally saw him sing the song uncensored. This was the first time a blacklisted artist had called out a president so clearly. It was a powerful moment showing that protest music could break barriers. The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour also gave a stage to bands nobody else would touch. From 1967 to 1969, The Who, The Doors, Jefferson Airplane, Buffalo Springfield, and Stephen Wolf all performed. These weren't safe choices for mainstream TV. The Who ended one performance by smashing their instruments and setting off explosives in Keith Moon's drum kit. The noise damaged Pete Townshend's hearing and sent shrapnel flying. The Doors performed Touch Me with a full orchestra. Jefferson Airplane sang Crown of Creation, a song about the fear of nuclear war. Buffalo Springfield played For What It's Worth, and Stephen Wolf's Born to Be Wild brought raw energy into American homes. The Smothers Brothers didn't care if it scared the network. They wanted to give these rebellious voices a place to speak. That spirit was appreciated by some of rock's biggest names. On April 26, 1969, at the Los Angeles Forum, Jimi Hendrix paused before a song and dedicated his show to the Smothers Brothers. He called them heroes for allowing art and protest to live together on TV. Chris was at the top of his career. The show had just been canceled by CBS for being too controversial, but Rix didn't forget. On that stage, he told everyone that the Smothers Brothers mattered. Music and comedy had never blended so perfectly, and they did it with humor, too. A perfect example was a recurring bit called Share a Little Tea with Goldie. Lee French played Goldie O'Keefe, a spaced-out hippie who gave funny advice loaded with double meanings. Tea was code for weed. Goldie's name was originally Goldie Keefe, a slang word for cannabis. The censors made them change it, but most people watching at home knew exactly what was going on. Goldie talked about roaches, and nobody thought she meant bugs. Younger viewers loved the joke because it felt like the show was winking at them. Even though the network kept an eye on things, Goldie became a cult favorite. Keith Moon was never one to hold back. On September 17, 1967, when The Who took the stage on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, he decided to go even further than usual. The band was there to play My Generation, and Moon had something up his sleeve. He had secretly filled his kick drum with explosives. It was way more than anyone had agreed to. Even his bandmates had no clue what was about to happen. Moon wanted the perfect finale. Loud, unforgettable, and wild. When the last part of the song hit, the explosives went off with a deafening blast. Smoke and debris shot across the stage. A piece of a cymbal hit Moon, knocking him backward. Pete Townshend's hair was blown up in a big mess. The force was so strong it caused hearing damage that would last for the rest of Townshend's life. The noise was so loud that it shocked the crowd into silence before they started to scream and cheer. Moon had created chaos and spectacle exactly as planned. But the price was serious. Townshend would lose nearly 90% of his hearing in 1A. The ringing that followed was painful and never really stopped. Years later, Townshend still spoke about the constant pain and how playing guitar became harder because of the damage. It was an unforgettable moment for everyone and one that changed the way they performed forever. And then came the guitar. Amid the smoke and confusion, Townshend grabbed Tom's Smothers acoustic guitar and smashed it on stage. Smothers just stared at him, too shocked to say anything. It felt like a perfect end to the chaos, a loud, rebellious moment that showed exactly who the Who were. They were pushing boundaries no one had dared to touch before. That explosion in the smashed guitar did more than make headlines. It became a part of rock history. Younger fans loved it. Older people were outraged. The show had given America something raw, rebellious, and real. Parents hated it, and kids thought it was freedom. It was a true generational split. And it was exactly what the Who, the Smothers Brothers, and their rebellious crowd wanted. The performance would never be forgotten. Joan Baez was also stirring things up. She was a folk singer who fought for peace and social justice, and everyone knew it. Born on January 9, 1941 in Staten Island, New York, she'd spent her life standing up for causes she believed in. By 1967, Baez had already been arrested for protesting, and her song spoke to people who wanted change. When she appeared on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, she wanted to dedicate a song to her husband, David Harris, who was going to jail for 3 years. He had refused the draft and spoke out against the Vietnam War. Baez was proud of him and said so on the show, but CBS cut most of what she said, leaving only a vague message before she began to sing. Baez's censored dedication was one of many signs that CBS was under pressure. The network was scared of upsetting the government and angry sponsors. Even President Lyndon B. Johnson himself had complained about the show. Johnson had stayed up until 3 a.m. to call CBS and demand they control the Smothers Brothers. Nixon followed, pushing even harder to get them off the air. In 1968, the show had booked Harry Belafonte. They put together a powerful performance. Belafonte sang Lord, Don't Stop the Carnival, while footage showed police beating anti-war protesters at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It was bold. It was real. But CBS pulled the whole segment before it ever aired. And that wasn't the end of it. CBS then sold the 5 minutes they'd cut to the Republican Party or campaign ads. What was supposed to be a heartfelt protest against political violence turned into an ad bee for the very politicians being protested. It was clear which side the network was on.